Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Startup Unfiltered, brought to you by the Tech Startup Founders Academy. I'm your host, well, one of your hosts anyway, Peter Daly-Dixon, and I'm joined as ever by my friend and colleague and founder extraordinaire, Mr. Stuart Prestedge. Hey, Stuart.
Hi, how you doing?
So you said that you're not feeling 100% today. What's up?
Oh, I won't go into details. But yeah.
It's under the weather, and you're not in Czech today. You're in London.
I'm in the UK. I'm in London at the moment. Yes. Yeah, I'm in my daughter's house in London.
Well, this show is recorded live inside the Tech Startup Founders Academy, and we are joined by Team Shield and Scale, Phil Mickens and Michelle Coombs, who are taking part in the April Momentum competition, which is going on at the moment. So it's great to have you both with us. And thank you for you who are watching, listening to this, perhaps being recorded, watching it back. So I do tend to give Stuart like a little bit of a notice. That might not always be the case. And it just occurred to me earlier on this week that we've touched on it a few times. And last week, if you saw the episode, we know that we looked at the whole journey from waking up with an idea to to getting investment. And because it is something that sort of close to my heart in terms of me waking up with ideas, and I've tried to execute on a few of them. I thought we could just spend a little bit of time, Stuart, this afternoon, digging into a little bit more of the detail of what validation means, what it looks like, how do we know whether an idea has been validated. And I want to pose it to you in the context of let's pretend. That's one of my favorite phrases, eh? So
really
let's pretend. Let's pretend.
Kick a man when he's down.
No, not at all. So let's pretend that you woke up tomorrow and with all the magic of synthesis and dreams and whatever, you woke up and you were sure that you've got a brilliant idea for a piece of software, for an app. What is with your experience now, having been and done it so many times, what is the first thing that you would do waking up with what you think is a fantastic idea?
Gosh, that's a good question. And I have done this many, many times. And I don't know that it's always the same. But the first thing I would try to do is just from my, before sort of doing tons and tons of work, I would, from my head, write down what do I think the problem being solved is, and what are the benefits of it? Because it really, a product really, in my mind, a solution has to solve a problem, and for a certain subset of people. So I'd probably write that down. To be really, just the act of writing it down, for me at least, makes one think about it clearly. It kind of makes it real. Whereas, and think about the detail of it, because when you're just thinking about it, your mind wanders to the sort of fun, positive things. It doesn't it's not methodical and thorough, I don't think. So the act of writing stuff down, and for me it's on a computer, but it can be pen and paper.
And are you writing down about the problem or the person that you're solving the problem for, or
everything.
Like just whatever comes out?
Yeah, whatever comes out, because it is a problem for a person that you're solving, and typically you think of a solution. Well, I do think of a solution to it. You kind of think of, at the same time as a problem, think of a solution to a problem at the same time, kind of thing. So I'll give you. Oh no, actually, is that true? Isn't it? I'll give you an example. I was driving through Europe the other day, and we had to do on the journey. Had to sort out 4 different vignette and toll, and not just the toll booths, but different sort of things you have to purchase online, and it was just a complete nightmare. Whereas, I thought, okay, there should be a solution where I register my number plate and my credit card, So I wrote it down, what the pros and cons are. But I also write down what objections might be. What are the reasons? So in that particular case, what I wrote down, what are the reasons why people wouldn't use such a solution? Because that's the whole purpose of validation, isn't it? It's to find out, would people use it? Do people have the problem? Would they use your solution? If not, why not? And there's generally many, many reasons why not. And then you've got to you've got to sort of work out, which of those reasons are surmountable in some way. Now, that could be through education, it could be through re-engineering the solution, pivoting slightly. So yeah, it starts off theoretical, but then it has to move into the concrete world. It has to move into the world where you kind of interview, talk to potential customers.
So before we go there, let's see if we can bring this really to life. So the last startup that you were involved in, is that the one that you had the 8-figure exit on, or have you done others since then?
No, I've done others since then.
Okay, well let's focus on that one, because that's sort of the headline startup. Do you remember the process of the idea forming? Take us back to the kind of the real genesis of that startup.
Yeah, that was a slightly different one, because part of validation is to look at competitors. And there's a double-edged sword with competitors. If there are no competitors, that's a kind of a bit of a red flag. Like, why not? Is this truly something that no one's ever thought of before? But if there are competitors, it's good in that, good and bad. Good in that they're seemingly, on the face of it, there's a market for this thing, and there is a need. Otherwise, the competitors wouldn't have survived unless they've just launched and they've yet to find out and haven't done it properly. And of course, it's bad in that you're competing against them, but you can learn from them. So with this product, it was a product called Work Team. This is over 10 years ago itself now, I think. I'm trying to think back. It was slightly different, because what we did was we realized that the existing solutions weren't good enough, and they could be better in themselves, and they could be more tightly integrated with other related benefits that kind of solve similar problems for similar people. So the problem was around engagement, employee engagement, but also because we were looking at the existing engagement platforms that are out there, but also it kind of merged into KPIs, so tracking KPIs for people, and again, it's kind of related because it brings teams together and makes sure that there's this silent resignation that was going on. So we're trying to sort of solve that and make life easier for people, and at the same time measure the engagement.
And why? And just out of interest, why was that? Why was that an interest for you? Why were you even looking at that?
Right.
Well,
my sweet spot has always been business productivity, and if I'm not mistaken, and my memory is terrible, as I've said many times before, when I did the big exit, I worked for the company that bought my company for a couple of years, and they had a tool. They used a tool, and this was a company that would have chosen the best tool. They had a tool to do this engagement measuring, and it was a bit rubbish. It was very corporate and rubbish, and I think also it was prohibitive. I think it was prohibitively expensive for small SMEs. And my sweet spot has always been productivity tools for SMEs. So, in fact, a few of my products have been about bringing sort of corporate kind of available things for the corporate down into SME market, making them affordable, making them easy to use, The problem being they're A, not affordable, and B, they're a nightmare to configure and use. I mean, look at Microsoft Outlook and Microsoft Teams. How many SMEs do you know that use Microsoft Teams? They don't, because it's practically unusable. Now, there are solutions to that. There's obviously Google Meet, for example, and so they've carved their niche out. But before Google Meet, there was a gap, for example. Zoom tried to fill it. So that was a gap that we focused on a lot, bringing that functionality that was available to corporates down to SMEs.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear that, because I in my conversations with founders, do often speak to founders that are what I describe living the pain. So they are working in a company and they are experiencing pain in having to use the tools that are available.
Yes.
So would you say that from in your own experience, that's a really valid kind of start?
It is a start, but there's a real gotcha here. What I've seen a number of times is people who live the pain. It's great that they have got experience with it. They are aware of it. They know the details of it. They know the impact of that pain, but they make the assumption that other people have the same pain, the same impact, the same need, the same priority for that pain, and therefore assign it the same value. Therefore, if I solve this pain, everyone will want it. That assumption, and that's where validation comes in. That's why it's needed, just to
and
test that assumption.
and that leads us neatly onto the next stage of validation, I suppose, which is those conversations to, I guess, test your assumptions, to what else? What's in your mind when you? Well, two questions. What's on your mind when you approach those validation conversations, and who was the first person that you spoke to about this idea that we've been looking at here, this work team product?
Oh goodness, I can't remember that. I don't know, but invariably you talk to people in the first instance. Now, you have to remember that they're biased. You have to remember that. So I approach those conversations with, tell me why you wouldn't use this. Tell me why this is not a good idea. Not tell me why it is a good idea, because they're going to say, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Think of reasons why this wouldn't work. For those biased people. So be mindful of that bias. And don't stop
And how do you
there.
set, just out of interest, how do you set those conversations up?
Oh, they're very informal.
Are you asking for help? Are you
Me, no. I'm just asking for people's opinions, because I'm an optimist and I'll always think something will work. So I know that, so and that's, important for a founder to know your weaknesses and try and get around them. So they're just very informal. I've had an idea. I talked to you about it.
Interesting.
And tell me why it wouldn't work. What have I missed, kind of thing.
So completely being completely away from any sense of there being like a product or a solution. Is like you are literally exploring the idea and talking about the idea.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, I think there's a difference between talking to people who you
theoretically means.
Talking to people who and who are going to give you a biased answer, and talking to strangers. When you do your proper, like say, your proper validation, I think there's a difference in that conversation there, because they're more structured, and you've very much got a goal in mind and a psychological way of doing it. But when it comes to these informal conversations, I don't really. I just, it's an exploratory thing rather than a sort of formal, structured. This is goal-oriented conversation.
I wonder if it might be helpful or fun or a bit of both, to actually kind of to really bring it to life and have one of those kind of exploratory conversations with an idea. So I've got an idea for a solution, identified a problem. Can we spend a couple of minutes talking about it, and you tell me all the reasons why you think it won't work?
Yeah, but this bleeds over into domain, experience. So I may have had zero experience in the domain you're talking about. So I may not be the right person to talk to. So there's a difference between domain expertise and startup expertise. So yeah, but happy to do so.
Okay, so all right. So just digging into that a little bit, how important is it for the people that you have these exploratory conversations with to be domain experts?
They don't need to be domain experts. They need to be the kind of people who would have a problem, because people have problems without understanding, that particular domain. Like if your laptop's slow, for example, you're not a laptop expert. It's just like, I got a slow laptop. I want to solve that problem. I don't have to understand how the laptop works. Same with the car. My car breaks down. I don't understand how my car works. So you don't need to be a domain expert to be the user, to be the beneficiary of the solution. But it helps to be a domain expert if you're providing that solution, because you need to know how to provide the solution. For example, how to fix an engine, for example. But that leads on to an important point, which is you're trying to always look at it from their perspective. And I see this all the time. People thinking about, founders interviewing people thinking about it from their own perspective. You've got, and I say this countless times, put yourself in the shoes of the person you're talking to. What is it they starting with? What is it? Why are they talking to me? What is it they want from this conversation? What are they hoping to get out of it? And be careful of the fact that those people who say yes to an interview are kind of those people who perhaps like to please, which is why you've got to be careful. There might be some bias there, which is one of the reasons you don't start with closed questions. Because with closed questions, people tend, in my experience, to tell you what you want to hear.
Well, maybe one of the things that might come out of it, both for myself and those listening or watching this back, is a better idea of how to articulate an idea that you want to discuss with someone. Because you're absolutely right, Stuart, and I guess it's what I'm about to say should be predicated by the fact that I haven't done the kind of writing down step that you've done. It has been kind of just floating around, and I absolutely get what you're saying. That and I noticed Michelle in the comments said that before she started on her startup, she did a full pros and cons and general exploration before she reached a kind of internal go no go decision for herself. So it is still kind of a bit sort of vague. Maybe that is what will come out of it. So it is an idea that I have mentioned to you before, and there are two groups of people that have the problem. So on the one hand, we've got companies that buy training for their employees. That happens day in, day out in tens of hundreds of thousands of companies all around the country. It's like if you don't invest in training for employees, they up and go. Right. So employee training is a well-established market. And a subset of that market is training around soft skills, so creativity, flexibility, emotional intelligence, trust, communication, all that sort of thing. Again, that's a very clearly defined market. I don't know the figures because it's kind of just up there, but that training does exist, and companies buy it because those skills are important in employees. Companies don't employ robots. Okay, so identified what the one side of the marketplace, if you like, and that's effectively what my idea is. Because on the other side of the marketplace, we have skilled professionals like myself, creative, artistic individuals that are more than capable of delivering this soft skills training. But because they themselves are in jobs that don't necessarily fit their artistic self, they're not in a position to, they're not available to do that training. So the idea simply is to create a marketplace where artists like myself can be connected with companies who want what I can provide in terms of the training, and sort of facilitate that transaction at scale. So as far as I know, there is no kind of central marketplace for the kind of soft skills training. It's just relying on training companies to go out and hustle and find their customers themselves. Yeah. So as an articulation of an idea, how would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? And you can be frank.
You froze for a second there, but I think you said as an articulation of an idea. Yeah, it was a good articulation, except the one thing you kind of two things I think you missed, although you may have said them and I missed them. One thing that I think you missed was the clear benefit to the person who's getting the benefit. I mean, I think it's obvious. The benefit to the provider of the artistic side of things is clear. They'll get gigs. They'll get paid work. I think that's clear. Doing what they're good at doing. But on the other side, I wasn't totally clear what the benefit and the uniqueness was. So two things. And it's more about the unique value proposition. I guess that's that is what I'm asking. What's the unique value? Because benefits value. What's the unique value proposition over and above other companies that provide training, for example?
You asking me?
Well, you can answer it or not answer it. But that's one. As an articulation, I think that was missing.
Okay, wonderful. That's really helpful. So just off the top of my head, I would say that the benefit it gives companies is it's a simplification, if you like. So before Uber came along, and I know that's the classic thing about comparing your startup to Uber, with the Uber for kitchen appliances or whatever. But before Uber came along, taxi companies existed, and it was very easy to, varying degrees of ease, to find a taxi company and book a taxi. But it was on you to do the research, find out what the local taxi company was, to get their number, phone them. So Uber just made it really simple. It's just like a single place where you can or order a taxi wherever you happen to be in the world. You can order a taxi and it's going to come to you. And I think there's a similar proposition here, is that rather than having to go and find, I know that I need to put on, let's say, for example, I'm an L&D director. I need to put on some training for my employees. So I then have to go and do some research and find companies that can provide it, and how do I know how good they are and whatever. So with this marketplace, just a single place that you can see a whole range of courses and training, and the results that other companies that have used that particular training, the results they've seen in their employees. Does that help?
And is it unique? I mean, and that's where perhaps research comes in. So yes, there can be value, but it needs to be unique in some way. It doesn't have to be totally unique, but unique in some way that you are in a class of your own, and say we are the only solution that does X or does X in a certain way, or So, and as I said, that's where research comes, and that research can come through online research, but it can come through talking to potential customers, and I advocate for that.
Yes.
for many reasons.
I
So
mean,
that's how I'd start validating your idea.
Yeah. So you think that going from that articulation, there's nothing inherently that would make you think that, bearing in mind, I came into it with the advice that you gave, is like, why do you think, why and how do you think this idea might not work?
Yeah, and that's the question you should be asking people, but possibly me. So are you asking me why this might not work?
Yeah. Yes.
Why I think this might not work?
Yeah.
So there's two sides to it. So there's let's take the artist side. I think you've heard me say before, you don't know what you don't. You don't know what you don't know. You know this. There's always the risk of you don't know what you don't know, which is another reason why talking to people in an open way to find those reasons that you've missed. They might not be able to use computers in general, or be frightened of doing, non-one-to-one or corporate. Don't want to work with corporates, because of some ethical concerns, or there's all sorts of possible reasons why statistically it might not work. You need enough people to make it viable that you haven't thought of. So in terms of why I think it might not work, on that side of things, I don't know. You've got to pay them money, so there's going to be, that you might not be able to take enough of a cut, for example, for it to be viable. It's got to be a viable business. You've got to KYC everybody if you're paying out money as a solution. I'm thinking of random stuff here. I haven't really thought it through.
Yeah.
On the company side, it might be there's an existing solution already that lets them do this, or the companies you want to do might have an L&D director or manager that already is on top of all this stuff. Or big companies have preferred suppliers, for example. It might be really difficult to get on preferred supplier lists, things like that.
Yeah, great. I mean, even just that 5-minute conversation, it's taken my brain places that I hadn't before. Great, wonderful. Well, I hope that, I mean, when you do things live, you kind of have an idea and you kind of roll with it. I hope there was something useful in that for someone else watching, listening. So yeah, idea validation. I think we did a good exploration there of both the what and the why, and also the how. And because it is such an important aspect of the startup journey, I'm sure we'll be revisiting it over the weeks and months to
we covered the very beginning of the process there. Literally the first step, first two steps before you do research and start talking to people. And remember, I always say, if you can't reach people to do the validation, how are you going to reach them to sell the product? So you've got to do that.
Yeah, you're going to have to do it at some point. If you've developed a product, you're going to have to find them to sell it to them. So let's front load that work and see if you can find them to get their help in developing the product in the first place.
And it's as I said, there are so many reasons why you do this. It's not just about validating. It's about getting your KPIs, for example, and metrics. You can get some of those along the way to give investors confidence. You can start getting the language to use in the marketing. The way customers describe the problem or describe what they're doing. You can understand, for example, do I need to educate the market, or is this something the market already knows and already is looking for and understands? And that if you have to educate your market, that's a whole different thing entirely, which needs to be considered carefully. So there's so much to this. We've scratched the surface only.
but just in that last little bit there, but the other add-on benefits of validation was really fascinating to get down. Great. Well, we've ticked past the bottom of the hour, so all that remains for me, I know, remains for me to say is thanks for being here with us, either live or watching the recording. And it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from him as well.
Goodbye from me, yeah.
And we'll be back same time, well, I'll be in the same place. I think Stuart will be in a different place next time. But
I will. I don't
see you in a week.
Yep. See you then. Cheers, guys. Thanks, Peter.
Bye.